Hey everyone, and welcome to the Kickabout. Arsenal add to Spurs' woes, and Brentford went to war with Liverpool. I'm your host, Chris.
I'm Fran.
And I'm Dan.
Welcome to the show, episode number 55. Everybody, how are we doing? Have we managed to? Can you get home on the fuel that you've got in your car?
Yeah, I feel
Or
like
are we
yesterday.
walking tonight?
I'm on a red line.
Although Dan lives a very fine line of always being on the red line.
Oh, you like living life on the edge?
Yeah, I live life on the edge.
That stresses me out. I get to
Fran's
quarter of a
red
tank.
light comes on when she's on 3/4.
Honestly, I get to a quarter of a tank and I'm like, that's it, I've got to fill up. So this whole situation
Well, right now this is
is a
tailor-made for
nightmare.
you.
Absolute nightmare for me, this kind of situation. I am that person that's a panic buyer, but not just now, always.
Oh, dear, well, we know who to chase when the fuel really does dry up. Then
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably siphon some.
yeah, just see Dan in the morning with like a straw in the petrol tank. Right, okay, well, we have a quick announcement to make. I promised last week, I think, that we were looking into some extra ways that people could support the show if they so choose. And our Patreon page is now live. It's going to go on social media in the next day or two. But effectively, you can choose from one of the tier levels, which is either £5, £10 or £20 per month. As far as I'm aware, there is no obligation to continue it. You can even do your own custom amount, I believe, if you want to. So again, completely optional. The show will continue even without this, but if you do want to chuck a little bit of money our way, it will be massively appreciated, and it will help improve the show with new equipment and different things we can do. Maybe even take the show on the road somewhere. Who knows? So yeah, that will go up on social media in the next few days. Let's do a quick fantasy football before we do Dan the Statman. Dan, still riding high at the top. Beginning to pull away as well. 443 points. Another good weekend for you. 57 points. Todas Orentas. I'm going to throw that roll of the R in because it sounds better. FC Energy. He is in second place with 414. And then from second all the way down to 12th, we're talking 15 points. So it is very, very close. I've dropped away. I'm now 10th. But obviously still there or thereabouts. If I can, get
Have
to...
you still got wildcard available?
I have,
Is that going to be coming out anytime soon?
It's weird because on paper I'm really happy with my team, but they keep, like last few weeks I have made a couple of stupid errors, granted, but they've been letting me down the last few weeks. So the wild card, bearing in mind, when do we get it? Is it January? We get another one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a little while to use it then.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll wait until there's a few injuries or there's quite clearly an obvious change I need to make to save me having to
We've got
tank.
another international break coming up soon.
Oh, lovely. Just what I'm looking forward to. Right, okay. So, yeah, good stuff on that. We've got Pete in there. Dan Berry from work is in there. Lewis Holmes. So, yeah, we've got some familiar names. Dave McGregor just outside as well. So, yeah, thank you very much for entering. Hopefully it stays as tight as that for the rest of the season. We can have a nice close run thing to the finish. So, let's get on with this. Dan the Stat Man.
So Charlie Creswell became the first teenager to appear in a Premier League game for Leeds since which two players did back in 2004?
What age is a teenager?
So below 20.
12.
Yeah.
Below 20?
Yeah. You know what a teenager is? Like 19, 18,
Look at me
17.
like I'm a retard.
In fairness, I always thought teenagers was like 16 or below, 17 or
Well,
below.
it's like 13, 14. I mean,
What
none
was
of these are 13-year-olds.
No, right. What was the question again?
Should we play the jingle again?
Rewind. Charlie Creswell, at 19 years old, became the first teenager to appear in a Premier League game for Leeds since which two players did back in 2004?
Right, for Leeds. Because I was thinking there's players that age that have been in the Premier League.
And both
for
the
Leeds.
players you will both know.
I have a feeling I know who.
Yeah.
Well, I know who one of them is.
I know you definitely know who one it is, but you'll definitely know the other one as well.
Okay. 2004.
2004.
Okay, right. Well, as always, we'll get the answer to that later on in the show. Let's get on with things then. Let's start with the North London derby. Yet another example of how football can turn so quickly. We were saying last week that a win for Arsenal, all of a sudden they will have more points than Spurs. And they duly obliged. I mean, we were talking about Arteta not long ago about being, 1 or 2 games away from potentially losing his job.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, that chat has kind of gone away, and now it's all focused on Spurs, Kane, and Nuno Espirito Santo. So let's start with Arsenal, because we have given them a bit of a battering this season so far. What did you guys make of their performance?
They're all right, but Spurs were more shit than they were good.
Okay.
I would give Arsenal their credit, to be honest. I thought they came straight out the block, and I agree, Spurs just looked like they didn't even get off the bus, but Arsenal just tore them to shreds.
Yeah, I mean, credit where credit is due. We do have to. We do have to be balanced in that if we say Arsenal are rubbish one week, but then they turn in a good performance the next. Their last two performances, yes, they won, but they weren't massively convincing. But I think this time, back to Fran's point, Spurs were poor, and what you said as well, Dan.
I've forgotten what Aubameyang looked like.
Do you see him harness his inner Thierry Henry? He definitely knew Henry was in the crowd, didn't he, with that celebration? But no, I agree. I thought they were very good. They were dynamic. They looked energetic. They looked hungry, which is a far cry from the Arsenal we saw a few weeks ago. I think in particular, what struck me was that it finally felt like this was the team that Arteta wanted. He had virtually all his players. I don't think there was any notable absentees injury-wise. I might be wrong on that, but it felt to me like that was as close to the strongest 11 that Arteta currently has.
I feel like Spurs looked like what Arsenal looked like a few weeks ago. When Arsenal just looked like they didn't know what they were doing, they had no drive. But they came out in this game, and like Smith Rowe and everyone, they were just going for it.
But to be fair, Spurs, other than their win against City, I mean, they struggled against what Wolves were the better team against Spurs. But Spurs come out with a 1-0.
What are they looking for?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get completely off topic with Arsenal before we go on to the smashing Spurs about it. But yeah, Spurs looked devoid of a plan, really, in that game, didn't they?
But bring it back to Arsenal, I guess. Arsenal, we've said that they did look a bit devoid of a plan as well. But
Do you think this was just almost like the perfect storm, in that Spurs turned up and were poor, Arsenal were great, or do you think this was actually Arsenal had a game plan, did it perfectly, and knew where Spurs' weaknesses were?
They knew they needed it. If there was ever a game where Arsenal needed to turn up, it was this one.
And you got one team's in good form at the moment, the other one's obviously at the opposite end and has lost sort of 2 in a row.
Yeah.
I think even though they only won 1-0 against Norwich, they only won 1-0 against Burnley, they did have 30 shots against Norwich. So they were creating, they just couldn't put any away. So I do think if they can keep this, I mean, they are only 5 points off top now, I think. It's
amazing, isn't it? How it turns. 3 wins on the spin, and all of a sudden they're, in 10th position and they're looking up rather than looking down. But I felt like one of the bigger players, although I don't think he had his best game ever, he just looked like he just made everything click, and that was Thomas Partey in midfield. He's been such a miss for Arsenal, and he's been so injury prone that even though he wasn't the best player for Arsenal, I think Smith Rowe and Saka were absolutely superb. Aubameyang looks good. I even thought Ben White had a very good game as centre back as well. But it just felt to me like Thomas Partey was that missing link. Yeah. I mean, God, even Granit Xhaka looked decent before he got injured.
And to be fair, Ramsdale, I think, had one of the best games of his career.
What a save that was at the end.
With the fingertips onto the crossbar.
So
he made quite a few saves. It wasn't just 1 or 2.
Yeah, he was... I mean, he was one of the players that got an awful lot of flack pre-season for the signing, and people were saying, why are you signing someone who's been relegated with 2 or 3 teams or whatever it is? So he's kind of got a point to prove. The word inside the England camp is that Ramsdale is very highly thought of. So maybe this is the chance that he needed. And, at the moment, with performances like that, Bernd Leno's not getting back in the team, is he?
No. Well, apparently Bernd Leno's already looking at leaving in January.
He's seen enough already, has he? So, next game away for Spurs, they got Brighton, which will be tough, yeah. Why are you looking at me like that?
Do you mean next game away for Arsenal or for Spurs?
Arsenal, I believe, or have I got that wrong?
You said next game away for Spurs.
Oh, sorry. No, I meant Arsenal.
And I was like, we skip quickly.
No, next game away for Arsenal is Brighton. It could be a real...
say as well, if Brighton win this, they go top of the league.
Do they really? Yeah. Well, they're 1-0 down. They just conceded a penalty. So, but yeah, this little resurgence that we've seen from Arsenal, this is going to be put to the test because Brighton are a very difficult team to play at the moment. They've then got Palace, again, not easy as we're seeing right now. They're 1-up at Brighton. They're looking better under Vieira. Then they've got Villa, Leeds and Leicester. And whilst all of those on paper are fairly tricky games, all for different reasons, again, it's amazing now that with these 3 wins in the spin, all of a sudden you're thinking Arsenal, actually, you can go and target wins in all those, and realistically, we can expect you to get wins in all of those.
And they don't have Europe, so they're not going to be playing midweek. They've got a full week to
Who would have thought that no Europe would be a benefit?
Yeah.
But, the one person I did hear who wasn't particularly enamoured of the sort of this talk about Arsenal and their resurgence was Jamie O'Hara on TalkSport. Now, him and one or two other of the newer wave of pundits that have invaded TalkSport, who frankly talk shit most of the time.
I would agree.
This one was particularly brilliant because he came out and basically went in on Arsenal fans for getting too excited about this and saying, you've got 9 points. You've had the biggest fall from grace in recent history. Like, why are you getting so excited about this? I'm thinking, well, yes, they have had a big fall from grace. So does that mean that they're not allowed to celebrate any kind of victory until they start winning the league again?
Derby as well.
Yeah, North London derby against this is literally the derby as far as Arsenal are concerned. Why shouldn't they celebrate it? This could be the start of something. Who knows? We'll revisit that part of the conversation again in 10 games time. But who knows? Why can they not celebrate a great performance and a win?
Well, I saw something on TalkSport earlier that they were saying that De Gea wouldn't get a game in League Two. So that goes to show.
Who said that?
I didn't.
That's definitely Gabby Agbonlor, that is. We got a bit about him later and all.
I was like, I'm not reading that bollocks.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Imagine saying that, bearing in mind how De Gea started this season.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like he's been back to his sort of old self this season.
Last year and the year before, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree. But this season, he's been unreal.
So, yeah, I think that's very much, bearing in mind he's an ex-Spurs player as well. I don't know if there's a bit of sour grapes going on there. And of course, for every good performance, there is a bad one. And this one was particularly bad from Spurs. Fran, what did you make? I know you're not a diehard Spurs fan, but watching that even must have been tough even for the casual Spurs fan, shall we say.
But I feel like I've said it for a couple of weeks now. I just feel like...
You saw this coming.
They just don't know what they're doing. I just look at them. And obviously they know how to play football, but I feel like as a team, I feel like they've got no togetherness, no clue what they're moving forward for. I mean, their main talisman, obviously Harry Kane, he wants to leave. Obviously, he's going to... That whole thing in summer, I think, just fucked them over.
Do you think that the team is suffering as a result of that as well?
Yeah, well, it would. If he's like your main talisman and he wants to leave or wanted to leave at one point, like, why you're all a bit like, well, should we leave? Like, if he is the one man that's like representing Spurs, doesn't believe in Spurs, then you kind of begin, the rest of the team, I would have thought, would then begin to question it as well. And that, like, what are they doing? All of them look lost.
Yeah, they look like a ship without a rudder at the moment. And there was a couple of points in their game, that one of which was highlighted. I can't remember if it was Sky or Match Now, wherever it was. But I can't. When did Arsenal get their first goal? Was it reasonably early on?
Well, all three were within 35 minutes.
Right. Okay. So whenever the first goal went in, the reaction when they lost the ball somewhere near the halfway line. Minute. Yeah, I think it was quite early. The reaction to when they lost the ball, especially from Højbjerg and Ndombele in particular. Did you see the way they were just sort of like casually jogging back?
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. Like if you're a Spurs fan and you're seeing your players put in that level of effort that early into a North London derby, it's some worrying signals.
At least when Kane lost the ball because he fell over, at least he ran all the way back. So
he ended up making it worse.
And then he essentially made it worse. But that's the kind of effort you want to see more than what Højbjerg.
Yeah, I give him that. He did lose it, and he did run all the way back to tackle Saka.
It was unfortunate the way it then sort of bounced through to Saka, but equally then Eric Dyer just didn't react at all.
Who was the other one as well? Can't remember who it was that just didn't move. When the ball was literally obviously going in the net, there was another defender that just didn't move. I was like...
take your pick, frankly. There's an awful lot of them.
It was for the first goal when they rolled it back to Smith Rowe and he was just all on his own.
Yeah.
And he just tapped it in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Dele Alli and Tanganga bore the brunt of the criticism that no doubt would have come their way from Nuno at half-time.
Did you see his press conference at the end?
Nuno, not
his press conference, his what you call it?
Is it the interview afterwards? Yeah. It was interesting that it seemed to me like he really tried to shoulder all the blame himself.
Yeah, but I mean, he did. But everyone's saying he had a dig at Ali without actually having a dig at Ali, because he said that he sort of set out with a plan and certain players didn't play to that plan. He was like, I won't name anyone.
I.e. the people I brought off at half time, You don't need to dot the I's and cross the T's there, mate. We can work that one out for ourselves. But no, I mean, they were both poor, but they weren't the only ones. I mean, there was an improvement, I suppose, of sorts in the second half. Harry Kane at least had a few more shots on goal, and he probably should have scored at least one, maybe even two. Well, I mean, with the Harry Kane situation, I mean, despite the fact that he clearly wants to leave, I mean, you'd put your house on him scoring that one where he went clean through, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
What did you make of the kind of nonchalant style of the finish where he didn't really seem to, he just sort of tried to dangle a foot? Do you think that was just him trying to be too cute, or do you think that was a bit of a...
I think he's just void of confidence. Do you know what I mean? The summer he's had, he clearly doesn't want to be there. And I think...
Performances like this are not helping.
Yeah. It's like being forced to do a job you don't want to do. You're not going to put 100% effort. You can say, he's a professional and, he's not going to go out there and not want to score, but you can see he doesn't want to be there.
Do you think this affects value?
I was going to say, because surely he's making himself worse, so people aren't necessarily going to want him, and also they'll judge him on his character, like he's being a bit of a dick, isn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, it is Harry Kane. I can't see anyone.
It's not like he's not going to get the England squad or anything like that.
Yeah, I can't see teams going, he's been a bit shit this year, we'll give you 60 for him.
Yeah, I think his previous record, there's a long way to go yet
Levy's
before
still going to want 120 to 150 million.
I think his previous record is still going to trump any kind of bad form or bad attitude for the time being anyway. I mean, if it lasts the entire season...
Last season, he was top scorer and top assists.
Yeah. If this lasts the entire season... maybe there's a different conversation between Kane and Levy.
Especially if it's going to be, performing badly, not even in sort of European spots. I think Kane's maybe got a point.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Levy reacts to that, because he obviously really put his guard up this summer, knowing full well you would think that Spurs are unlikely to get, very unlikely to get top four, and it's, it's a bit of a coin toss with the other team challenging for Europe. So he's kind of put his line in the sand and sort of said, no, we're going to keep Kane at all costs. We're going to try and get ourselves back into Europe. What happens if they don't get Europe? I know it's a gentleman's agreement, which means nothing. But at some point, Kane's going to go, mate, you're on a downward spiral. Take the money, rebuild your squad.
Is he droppable?
Who?
Kane. That would take a set of cojones to do that. But I think so.
They played better without him than they have with him so far.
Of course he's droppable. Why would he not be droppable?
Well, just because who else would you play as striker? Son?
But then even he's not been his normal self recently either.
Yeah,
I know he took it.
I'd love Nuno to come out with that.
Why'd you keep playing him?
Harry didn't.
This is true.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how this saga unfolds.
So we'll do some.
Yeah, we'll do the notes. So we put out a thing on Facebook and our socials about what's going on at Spurs, what's the plan, where's the plan, what's the problem, and we didn't get a huge response, but we did get a few essays that came in. So I feel like we need a jingle just for this section.
So my brother is an avid Spurs fan. I said it can literally be 2 sentences, but he then put, I could literally write this all day. So
are we paraphrasing here, or are you reading the whole thing?
Here's a brief rundown. 1, Nuno doesn't know his best team or tactics, and you can tell the players aren't sure either, so he just tries to be defensive. Half the team wants to press and play higher, while half the team doesn't. So you end up with spaces everywhere when some go and some stay. And we leave loads of space in front of the back four, as they seem to be told to stay deep, and the midfield occasionally press up. Dele should be dropped if they keep playing this system. He just contributes nothing and is too easily passed defensively. Change formation and stick him up behind Kane, or nothing at all. The worst thing about yesterday is that during the first half, the manager just stood there with his arms crossed. He did nothing when it clearly wasn't working, and as soon as the second goal went in, the players' heads went down like there was no chance we could win. And then the last thing he said was, having said that, we got some bad luck yesterday. Their second was a foul in the build and shouldn't have counted. Brackets, great counter though. The third was very, very lucky. It dropped back to Saka's feet after his cross was blocked. I still don't know why VAR didn't give us a pen for the trip on Kane. But that's what happens when you're always so negative and reactive instead of proactive. Yeah.
What did you guys make of that penalty? Because I was a bit just before we touched on the other email. What did you think of the penalty? Email, text, WhatsApp, whatever.
Email. Yeah, it's one of those. But I felt like
he threw himself to the ground.
Yeah,
quite
I think
hard.
He was looking for it, a bit like the sort of Ronaldo ones against West Ham, really. So I mean, if they weren't given, then I can understand why that one wasn't given.
I really can't make my mind up as to whether I think this was a penalty or not, because I see that I think it was Ben White, wasn't it, who dangled the leg.
Yeah.
I can't tell because Kane goes down so fast. I can't actually tell whether there was contact or not. And if there was, I don't think it causes him to go down that quickly. So I think, as you say, a little bit like Ronaldo, he's done himself in there with that sort of over the top.
Yeah, I think the problem is because the ref didn't give it. That's why VAR hasn't given it. Because we haven't seen VAR overturn many referee decisions.
No, I mean it's got to be clear and obvious, right? That's the line in the sand. But as we know, VAR hasn't always abided by that.
I think they're trying to go with the referee's decisions this year,
which is good because it forces the referees to actually make a call rather than waiting for VAR to do it.
They just keep getting it wrong.
So right, back to you, Fran.
So a friend of Dan's wrote, oh God, Spurs, tough one to talk about. I feel like we're going backwards every season. No net spend and just selling players that are important and replacing them with untested ones. We didn't strengthen at all this season, even with a new manager. It was one in, one out, and pretty much same squad. Couldn't shift unwanted players, and our main player wanted to leave, and we could have spent the money instead. Now he can't score and isn't happy. I think the fans expect very little this season, 7th or 8th place, and still will be disappointed as we wanted to see attacking football.
It's interesting because, I mean, Nuno was, I don't know how far down the list it was, probably about 40th.
Yeah, he wasn't really wanted originally, was he?
He wasn't known for, I mean, last season in particular, Wolves didn't have a good season. They weren't known for playing particularly free-flowing football. I think the seasons before, I think they were a bit more like that. So I think the point that I think your brother's made about not knowing his team, I think is a good point.
Yeah, but I mean, it's always like that. I think when you get a new manager at a new team, you're not going to find your best team straight away, are you? You're still sort of finding out about your players, and I think he's starting to find out why Mourinho hated Ali so much.
But equally, it's, when your team isn't performing particularly well, it's difficult to work out your best team when your team is just not performing. You don't know where the levels are of your players because they're not reaching them. And the stats earlier in the season, when Spurs won their first 3-1-0, they were top on points, but all of the other stats, so shots, expected goals, all that kind of stuff, they were like 13th, 10th to 13th, I think it was. So those 1-0 performances and the league position were definitely masking an underlying problem, which we're now seeing coming out. So, yeah, he's got a job on to do something about this.
I'd like to add as well, I think it was on what your brother said about Nuno just standing there with his arms folded. Like, something I actually really like about Arteta is he's so animated.
Yeah.
There was a point where Arsenal lost the ball. I think they were counter-attacking or something, and then Spurs were counter-attacking, and Arteta stood there like rallying his players, like sort of getting them to sprint back. And I don't want to talk about United, but I don't see that of Ollie, and there's certain managers you don't see it with, whereas Guardiola would have done the same thing, Klopp would have done the same thing, and I think that's good where you've got these managers out there sort of almost playing.
It's perception, isn't it? And public perception is a big thing. I mean, like this thing recently with Steve Bruce. So when the international break was on, he went on a holiday to, I don't know where he went. He went abroad somewhere. And it got in the papers. Somebody took a picture of him in a restaurant having a nice time. And of course, Newcastle being in the state that they are, it's not good PR. But all Brucey could have done to avoid that situation was to take a laptop with him, get a picture taken while he's working and say it was a working holiday.
Yeah.
Like, he could have easily avoided that. And it's that perception thing. Managers deserve a break. I don't hold anything against any player or manager given the amount of games and travelling they do throughout the season. I don't particularly care if they go on a quick 1 week break to refresh the batteries. Many teams have done that in the past. I think Sam Allardyce famously used to do that with when he took over a struggling team. He'd take them on a 1 or 2 week holiday / team building thing to try and get the atmosphere going, and sometimes he got a lot of success from that. So I don't mind that, but as you say, it's that public perception. When the team's down, you want to see your manager out there doing something, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's not. He just looks like he isn't. I think in Solskjaer's case, I actually don't think he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's even funny with Arteta. It's hilarious because he's on the side of the pitch giving it the big one, and it's almost like someone takes his batteries out when he goes and does his interviews because he's so monotone and so wooden. It's like two different blokes.
Did you see the German national manager was there? Hansi Flick.
Yeah, Hansi Flick, yeah.
And, the only German actually there was Bernd Leno.
And he weren't playing?
Yeah. I saw a thing.
It's really
I saw a thing, I think it was Paddy Power saying, like, fair play to him going on, like, a company expenses holiday. I'm going to watch some German players.
I mean, I'm trying to think of other German players. I mean, Timo Werner for Chelsea.
Yeah, he went and watched Brentford Liverpool. I think there's a couple in the Brentford team.
Okay. But
you can't tell me any Brentford players are getting in the German national team, surely.
Well, I mean, now that Joachim Löw's gone, maybe he's having a bit of a rebuild and a rethink, because Germany haven't done that great in the last couple of tournaments. So, okay, right, let's move on then. That's
a good segue, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, very good.
Very smooth.
Brentford, Liverpool. It's like you read the running order, Dan. What a match this was. 3-3 in the end. Brentford, we mentioned last week, they're looking more and more at home in the Premier League with each passing game. And I feel like this game was perfect for them because they'd had a reasonable start. They weren't conceding many goals. I think they'd only conceded 2 up until this game.
Yeah.
It felt to me like this was a bit of a free hit that they could take their confidence into. Whereas if they'd had the start that Norwich had, it's a completely different mindset when you go into that game and you've been getting battered every week.
They had nothing to lose really going into this, did they? They weren't expected to win or to get anything, and there's no reason for them to not go all in. It
really is amazing when you think. I can't remember what the points difference was between Norwich at the top and obviously Brentford came up in the playoffs. But it's amazing that Norwich can, every time they come up, they always win the league. They always come up automatically. And yet they struggle so badly in the Premier League. And yet Brentford have come up. And if you go by points alone, last season, they must have been an inferior team. And yet you look how Brentford are performing and how Norwich are performing.
I always find the team that wins the playoff tends to do better in the Premier League than the 2 winners. Because
is it that euphoria of winning?
Like Sheffield United came up in the playoff and they nearly got into Europe. And the other 2 teams got relegated.
Yeah, it is strange, but I mean Brentford were brilliant in this game. I mean, I think Jurgen Klopp said after the game that he was happy with his team attacking wise, but not so much defensively, and in particular in the air. Now you wouldn't think with Joel Matip. I mean, they had basically their first choice. Well, they did have their first choice back line, and you'd think with Joel Matip and Virgil van Dijk, you wouldn't get much change out of an aerial battle. But with Ivan Toney, you know, he was a thorn in their side again. He's going to be getting some looks, I think, from 1 or 2 other teams if this carries on.
They've got some nice fixtures coming up as well, Brentford.
Yeah. So again, we seem to ask this every time about Brentford, but every week we're impressed with them and the work that they do. So I mean, where can they get to? What's realistic for them this season? I think they're sitting. I'm going to say about 8th, 9th. I think.
Yeah.
Let me have a check. Dan, tell me what you think of Brentford while I check.
I think they've surprised everyone. I think I had them as one of my teams to go down, to be honest, and I've been proved very wrong. So I think, what other teams have they come up against? They come up against Arsenal, who they beat, and now Liverpool. I think that was the main thing for me, that they hadn't really come up against like a big team. No offence to Arsenal, obviously they didn't have half their players and they were poor, but
I think that, again, that's perfect storm again, that saying again, because first game of the season, Arsenal are still a big enough scalp that you'd be right up for it. First game in the top flight, first game in your new stadium, take your pick. It was perfect for Brentford.
But to score 3 goals, I know they conceded 3, but to score 3 goals against the Liverpool with Van Dijk, Trent, Robertson, and I think it was Matip.
Joel Matip,
as well as Alisson in goal. I mean, that's not bad going, is it?
I mean, the last goal was delightful. I loved it. That. Loved the little cheeky chip. So they played Arsenal. They've played Palace, Villa, Brighton, Wolves, and Liverpool. So they have had a fairly favourable run.
Oldham.
Yeah, and it's important to say a 7-0 win, even though it's against an inferior team. That's helpful, isn't it? When you're trying to build confidence, and then coming up, it's actually West Ham next. On Sunday,
Won't be captain in Antonio this week.
Oh yes, I will. And then Chelsea and Leicester after that. So that's three tricky. Screw you, 3 tricky games. That's coming up for Brentford, but I mean, every one of those, even though it's tricky for Brentford, it's equally going to be tricky for every team they're playing.
To be fair, I joke saying 2. Leicester actually haven't really been that good at all.
No, they've not. And Brentford Chelsea, that's going to be, the Brentford fans are going to be bang up for that one.
Yeah.
So, but it's when you've got a team that's working hard as well. I mean, sometimes it does just come down to how much you want it. And Thomas Frank said before the game for Brentford that they weren't thinking about anything else other than we're trying to win this game. And I feel like, why can't more teams have that attitude? I mean, we've seen it from some of the big managers before. Solskjaer, for example, we've seen it from Nuno Santo this year for Spurs. Thomas Tuchel was even, there were some negative things said about Chelsea this weekend and the way they approached that game. And Brentford just seemed to just take the same attitude in every game. It's like, we're going to have a go and let's see what happens. And they're absolutely loving it and they're bearing fruit. So with an inferior team, with respect to them, compared to these other teams, it does make you wonder why teams do try that safety first approach.
Yeah. I guess it depends sort of what players, because Watford had the best defence out of the three teams that came up, like stat-wise. But I mean, they've shipped a few goals in the Premier League.
So, yeah, it only took, the game itself was very, very back and forth. It only took 11 minutes for Mbeumo to have one cleared off the line. Thomas Frank really wasn't lying about wanting to go out and win it. What about the...
They did score a winner as well, didn't they? But it was ruled out for offside.
I think correctly so. I think there was also one for Liverpool that was ruled out for offside as well. That, again, was correct. They were tight, but I think
Salah
they were correct.
Went through and tried the lob.
Oh, what was that? I think that was at 3-2 as well, wasn't it? To Liverpool.
He could have got a hat-trick because he had one ruled out for offside and then he obviously scored and then he got that lob. What
about the save from Raya, the Brentford goalkeeper, on Diego Jota in that first half? Curtis Jones took the shot, hit the post.
Yeah.
And then Jota came in and...
He's actually been really good,
Their goalkeeper had a great game.
Yeah.
He's been very good all season, though.
Yeah, he has. Is he a new signing for them? I really honestly don't know.
They got him from Blackburn, but I think he's been there a couple of seasons now.
Right, okay. Let's just quickly talk Liverpool then. I guess not a huge amount to say here because I don't feel like we've seen a consistent... their consistent best yet this season. Mo Salah, fastest player ever to reach 100 top-flight goals now for Liverpool in their history. Do you feel like there's still not enough respect on his name, though?
Yeah.
Because I do feel like there is this... Okay. I do feel like there is this... there is this stigma still attached to him that he is this selfish player.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that he dives too much. But you can't argue with his stats. I mean, 2017, 2018 was his first season for Liverpool. 32 goals, followed up by 22, 19, 22, and he's already got 5 in 6 this season. So from a goals stat alone, I mean, we talk about Ronaldo and his stats. You don't get those sorts of numbers unless you're a bit greedy.
And to be fair, I think Mane's been the more selfish player this season.
Yeah, Mane's cutting there a frustrated figure, isn't he?
There's been a couple of games where he's just... I mean, I think it was 2 weeks ago where he just refused to pass it and he had like 19 shots.
That was, wasn't it Leeds? Yeah. And he actually apologised in the end after he scored. Yeah, it's... I don't really know what to make of Liverpool right now, I'll be honest. I think... as we say, we haven't seen them at their best yet at all. I don't know whether I feel like since this week, I know Man United lost, and we're not going to talk about them tonight, which will probably please you, Dan.
So glad it wasn't in the
not talk about that. I daren't read the messages that came in our WhatsApp group after that game. But I don't know if I just feel that maybe the title is looking, at the moment anyway, like it's going to be between Chelsea and City, with Liverpool maybe being there or thereabouts. I've just got this horrible feeling that United might just... I don't know. Their performances over the last few weeks have not garnered much confidence that they're going to be able to sustain a title challenge.
The problem with us, I'll quickly touch on, and we've seen it over the last couple of years since Ollie's been in charge, we'll have these games where we lose to like Villa and draw with Southampton, and then we'll go and beat like Liverpool, City, and as soon as he's under pressure and back against the wall, he always seems to pull out of the hat.
Arteta.
Yeah, he pulls these results out of the hat. I'm more confident about beating the big teams than I am playing the teams bottom of the league.
Well, that's why you scraped a result against us, mate. But do you honestly think that you'll sustain a title challenge?
Oh, well, no, not at all.
So back to my point then. So do you think that you will probably be fourth this year?
Yeah. Okay. But it'd be interesting with Liverpool because, I mean, I could be wrong, but isn't the African Cup of Nations in like January?
Yeah, I believe so, which means they'll lose Salah, Mane,
Keita.
Yeah. I guess
Matip.
COVID dependent, I guess. I mean, who knows what the situation is going to be with that. I mean, we've had the big row with Brazil and Argentina not long ago with their COVID travel restrictions. So we shall see.
How much will that affect their team?
Massively. I think is a point. I mean,
they've got rid of Shaqiri now.
I mean, they literally will have Firmino and Jota. They'll be their only two strikers. Divock Origi is going to get a run, I guess. Which will please Simon if he's listening.
That's very weak, isn't it, compared to Salah, Mane and Jota or Firmino?
It is, yeah. Right, okay, let's head to a break. When we come back, we've got Will from Rugby Blindside with his new segment, or his third weekly segment, before we get onto some more games and then get into the quiz. See you in a minute. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. So we'll dive straight into the Rugby Blindside segment from Will.
Hi everybody, this week the story continues and the plot thickens for Derby County. Following the club going into administration last week, I've been listening to a few interviews from a few different parties. Mel Morris, the club's owner, claims that he did all he could to save Derby County, but in other interviews, for example from the Supporters Association, they claim that Mel Morris has the funds to keep the club going, and it's more of a fact that he won't pay rather than he can't pay, which is a shame, but it is within his right because it is his money and he can spend it how he wants. The facts of the matter are at the moment for Derby County is that they do have a 12-point deduction in the league, administrators have been appointed, and they're in a slightly different situation to other clubs like Wigan who went into administration. This is because Derby actually don't have any assets. They don't own their stadium, they sold that off as part of a deal, they don't own their training ground. They've already had money in from the EFL for the TV money that they're going to get this season. Their players are on quite short contracts, so again, they don't have much value within the squad. So it's going to be really difficult for them to raise the funds that they need to pay the debts that they have, which have to be paid. So we're just going to have to follow this one closely and see what happens there. Positive news for the club, though, is that there are rumours that former Manchester City CEO Gary Cook and his US backers are open to buying Derby County. So there are some positive news on the horizon that a new owner could be in place at some point for Derby County. In other news, standing at top flight football is set to return from the 1st of January. After Sports Minister Nigel Huddleston instructed the Sports Grounds Safety Authority to take the first steps in creating licensed standing areas at Premier League and Championship clubs. What this means is that clubs will have until the deadline of the 6th of October to be in the preliminary round of applications. They have certain criteria that they have to follow. The necessary infrastructure, for example, has to be in place already. Fans must be able to sit or stand in the licensed area where they're going to be safe standing. So they have to, the seats cannot be locked up or locked down. They have to be just able to sit or stand, whichever they want to do. For the news that came out, Kevin Miles, Chief Executive of the Football Supporters Association, said, "Today's announcement is the result of prolonged and sustained campaigning by football fans. A victory for ordinary people with ordinary jobs who refuse to accept the Taylor's Report's contention that standing could not be managed safely." This is an exciting story for some fans who may have never actually experienced standing at football matches, so it's something new for someone to look forward to when they attend a game, hopefully in the near future. That's all from me this week, and see you again soon for some more stories from off the pitch in football.
Thank you very much for that, Will, as always. Just before we get on to the rest of the games, just want to touch on this Derby situation that Will mentioned there. I don't know if you heard this story. So Will touched on about the owner and whether or not he's actually able to pay, and he apparently did everything he could to prevent it from happening. Did you read the story about Rooney?
What about him
trying to contact him?
Oh, no.
So Rooney apparently has... I don't know whether this has been corroborated, this story, but the story was that Rooney tried to phone the owner to find out what was happening, and he just wouldn't answer. He just completely refused to take his calls. In the end, Rooney had to borrow somebody else's phone to make him think that it wasn't Rooney just to get through and talk to him.
Wow.
So if that's true, I mean, that's really bad.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, they've now got this 12-point deduction. They've got a threadbare squad as it is. It's really rough to see a club with, you know, they've been in the Premier League off and on for the last, 20 odd years. I know they've had some horrible moments. So I think they still hold the record for the worst points tally, but they are still a club with a lot of history. So to see clubs going into administration is really, really rubbish. Yeah.
And he really come out and said that he wasn't going to leave and stuff, which, I mean, I feel like he couldn't come out and say, I can't be asked.
No, but I think Rooney has definitely said the right things. I mean, he's talking about the staff and how that, they've got bills and mortgages to pay. It's very different for staff members at clubs than it is for players, with the obvious difference in salaries. So if Rooney is genuine and he is going to do everything he can to help, then fair play and good luck to him. Yeah. Right, okay, let's move on. Let's talk about Chelsea v Man City. Now, we obviously talked about this last week as being the big game of the weekend. The fact that it is in the second half of the show probably tells you all you need to know about the quality of the game.
Yeah.
Wasn't really what we hoped, was it?
No, but I always feel like these games, they're always hyped up, aren't they? But then they're usually quite close encounters. I feel like it was more of a tactical game than a game of... It was like a game of chess rather than a game of football.
Yeah, I mean, Pep finally got one over on Tuchel after Tuchel, did the treble over him last season, didn't he? In the Champions League, FA Cup and the league. So I guess, and because of the way Tuchel approached all those 3 games, we probably shouldn't be too surprised that this game played out the way that it did. Man City had the lion's share of the ball. They created a lot more chances. Chelsea didn't actually have a shot on target the entire game. And going back to what we were saying in the first half of the show about Brentford, about how they approached the game. I mean, Brentford, I can guarantee you, would have had more of a go against Man City than Chelsea did at the weekend.
Yeah.
So if you're a Chelsea fan, are you looking at that and thinking, we have literally just bent over and taken out the backside from City and let them win there?
Yeah.
Given last year, Tuchel was new to the job. He hasn't had the chance to bed in. Maybe he didn't 100% know his best side, but they certainly didn't have a striker in Lukaku who... This will not go away. He's still not scored against a big team. That will not go away. But you've got that weaponry now. You've got that. You've got all the confidence. You've got an amazing squad. To go out and play like that against Man City was anti-football, as Agbonlahor put it on TalkSport. What do you make of their performance and the way they approached the game?
I think they just set up to sit back and counter. The fact that they put Timo Werner up with Lukaku, I think they went for that quick ball up to those two, and it just didn't work at all because City absolutely dominated.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because if a 1-0 win for City, I mean, it's great for that City got the 3 points, and I personally think they thoroughly deserved it.
Bit of a scruffy goal as well.
It was a scruffy goal. Fair play to Jesus. He's doing everything he can to keep that place in the side and, try and be more of a goal scorer for City. I just feel like a little bit like the Liverpool-Chelsea game, we haven't really learned anything about the title picture.
No.
Because it wasn't a convincing enough win, maybe due to the scoreline, maybe due to the way Chelsea set up. If it had been a 2 or a 3-0 win, I think you could say that's a real marker from City. But because it wasn't, we don't really know anything more than we did going into that game about how this league is going to pan out.
Is it another one that they kind of cancelled each other out of it? Or do you think Chelsea were just not?
I think they cancelled each other out because of the way Chelsea set up.
Yeah, I think Chelsea played very negatively, to be honest. I think they disappointingly, I feel like they changed their style. Whereas City, I feel like they always go out with the same style of play. They're always going to... A bit like Leeds, like you know what you're going to get with Leeds. And I feel like that's similar with City. Whereas I feel like Chelsea, for some reason, changed, even though they were the home team. I think if they'd have gone out and played like they do every other game, they probably would have...
They would have caused a lot more problems.
They would have caused... Well, yeah, I'll put it that way. They would have caused a lot more problems. But yeah, for some reason, they seem to change their setup, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, I'm just really disappointed that they did that. I really thought that the game was going to be a... I know what you're saying about how it can be overhyped and the game becomes a bit of a cancel out.
They are technically the two teams that everyone's like, one of them will win the league.
Yeah. So it's frustrating that maybe both teams just didn't want to. Certainly Chelsea obviously didn't want to lose, and they thought, we'll wait for City to make a mistake somewhere else and we'll just mop up everybody else that we play.
Have they both got Champions League during the week?
Yeah.
Well, Pep will be worried about that.
City have got Liverpool at the weekend.
Pep will be worried about that as well.
So yeah, it is a shame.
They've got loads of strikers, right, at Man City. So
don't start that again. Don't start that again. Right, let's move on. Leicester, Burnley. Jamie Vardy had an eventful game, didn't he?
Yeah, got a hat trick.
2 of them were for the right team.
Great header.
It was another cracking game. I mean, and fair play to Burnley. They played their part in this. So I mean, let's talk Vardy first because he's not getting any younger. We've touched on the future of Leicester as and when Vardy decides to hang up his boots.
So pacey though,
but he's still got that pace.
I can't run like that now.
Both of his goals were old school Vardy.
Yeah.
The running in behind,
beautiful,
running the lines,
and his celebration as well.
Love it.
God, I hate him.
He's such a little sewer rat, isn't he? God, I love him. The second goal in particular, I just want to talk about Iheanacho because, by all accounts, he's been doing quite well and he's been getting his game time. Are you surprised that he hasn't had much game time this season so far?
Yeah, I mean, because obviously I think it was because Barnes was injured last season, so they went with the two up top. And Iheanacho absolutely outshone Vardy.
He was, if it wasn't for Iheanacho, they wouldn't have got anywhere near that top four.
No, and he won them the Community Shield as well. Came on as a sub and scored the winner.
Yes, that's correct. He did.
So, yeah, I feel sorry for him. I don't know what else he could have done to sort of get a mainstay in the team.
Yeah, it's...
And that they've just signed that Patson Daka as well, and I've not seen him play at all yet. I don't know if he's come on as a sub, has he?
If he has, he's not done anything to sort of like appear on our radar. We're not watching 90 minutes of every game every week, but he's obviously not doing enough to make any highlight reels or be talked about. So yeah, I don't really know because Iheanacho was playing as a bit of a number 10 at one point, wasn't he, behind Vardy?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I think Leicester's season, the way it's going, I think Brendan Rodgers sooner or later is going to start having to do something different because they are stuttering somewhat at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, I think, before this game anyway, they were down there with like the fewest created chances.
Which for a side that contains Tielemans, Maddison, Harvey Barnes, that's a bit worrying, isn't it? So what do you think's changed from last season?
As well, Castagna and Pereira, two very attacking fullbacks.
So what do you think's changed at Leicester at the moment? Is it just a stuttering start of the season and they'll be all right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. They've not lost anyone, have they? So I can't really put a finger on it. I mean, they haven't got Johnny Evans, but I can't see that's the reason that they're not attacking.
No, he might be, him and Wesley Fofana being injured might be a reason why they're defensively looking quite shaky at the moment. They are conceding quite a lot of goals. I think they're into double figures conceded already this season. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Umbro signee Maxwell Cornet got I wonder why you laughed. Umbro signing Maxwell Cornet got his first goal for the club on his debut. Really good goal, actually.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Really well taken on the volley. And they almost won it in the end. What did you think of the decision at the end? Do you think that was right?
I think he was marginally offside.
He was.
So it was weird because I was listening to the last few minutes of this on the radio on the way back from football on Saturday. And they said on the radio that the goal was ruled out for an elbow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Spurs, isn't it?
So, but everything I've seen since suggests it was for offside on Chris Wood, and looking at the replay would suggest that that's correct. But the elbow apparently from, I don't know who it was who won the first header that flicked it through to Wood, but they were saying there was an elbow involved there. But I was watching it, I was like, I don't see an elbow there.
I didn't even realise that.
So, but no, it's just going back to Leicester for a second, 6 games in, 13th place. 10 goals already conceded. They've not won in any competition since the 28th of August, which was a 2-1 win over struggling Norwich. So, I don't know, do they need to... They really need to get going, don't they? I mean, they will surely be targeting Europe again this season. Champions League is looking a long, long way off for them this season. But Europe has to be the target for them this season.
Yeah, I think they've sort of become almost a regular up there, haven't they? And I think they need to try and keep that. They're almost expected to finish in a European place now, whereas before, you'd give them a pat on the back, but now I think it'd be a disappointing season for them if they weren't in that top 6. Yeah,
you always get this sort of rise and fall of teams, don't you? Where teams will have incredible momentum for a couple of years and be up there, and then all of a sudden they'll slide down a little bit. Yeah. So I wonder if I know we're jumping the gun a bit, but I wonder if we're seeing that now with Leicester having been, such an amazing team and club for the last 4 or 5 years. Are we now just seeing a slight dip and they need to rebuild a little bit, re-get themselves and then have another go?
When you say rebuild, I don't know what...
Maybe rebuild's the wrong word, but just sort of reorganise things, maybe just shake things up a bit. Whether it's... I don't suggest...
Same great manager and the players. I know, Vardy's another year older, but it's not him that's stuttering, really. He's been scoring all their goals. So I don't really know... I couldn't look at that team and say this is the reason they're not doing as well.
But everything gets stale at some point in modern day football, right? Most modern day managers, even the very good ones, don't stay at clubs for more than a few years.
True.
Guardiola is very much the exception to that rule right now, and of course Ferguson and Wenger back in the day. Pochettino at Spurs, you look at the length of time he had there. Yes, he didn't win any trophies, but he transformed that Spurs team into a mid-table team, into a team that was in the Champions League most years. And obviously, look at what's happened to them since. So it's going to be interesting to see. What about Burnley though? I mean, they're still winless. They did put on a good performance here, but they've only got 2 draws to their name this season. Goes back to this thing, like it's just going to be another season of looking over their shoulder again.
That's just them though, isn't it?
Yeah, we say it, don't we? There's no, it doesn't really seem to be too much ambition with Burnley. I think I know they're not obviously one of these rich clubs, but
are they just happy to plod along?
I think so. I think it's just a case of staying in the Premier League, isn't it?
But if you're from the fans' point of view here, if you're a Burnley fan, are you enjoying this? Because every team wants to be in the Premier League, right? That's the pinnacle. That's where you want to get to. But
to be fair, as a Burnley fan, it must be quite cool because you get all the great teams coming that you can go and watch them.
Yeah, but I guess Burnley have been in the league now for 6 years, 5-6 years.
Quite a long time.
At some point, they must think, okay, right, we've been here long enough now. Can we not push on? We've established ourselves. We've got.
I don't think their management think that.
Well, yeah, clearly not. But as a fan, do you think that would they rather drop down to the Championship, smash it, have a great season, winning loads of games, maybe bring in when they go down, they'll probably have a reshuffle of players, maybe bring in some different players and might just freshen things up.
It's difficult though. I feel like I know
it's a gamble, but
Sean Dyche has been there so long now and he's assembled this team of like really physical players. They all sort of suit this style of play. I feel like if they were to try and do what Crystal Palace did, where they bought in De Boer and let's try and change the way we play, I just don't think it would work.
Yeah, you'd almost need to rebuild the entire team.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so ingrained into the club.
It have to be very slowly trying to change the style of play and change the style of player they've got because Sean Dyche has been there so long now and he's built this team the way he wants it. And yes, they're not, pulling up trees, but they're getting the job done at the end of the day.
But that's at some point, it's going to catch them.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to do this forever. Sean Dyche is not going to be there forever. Sooner or later they're going to have to start bringing in more players to replace, Tarkowski has been linked away a number of times. We shall see. Let's move on to the final game we're going to talk about this evening is Southampton against Wolves. So there are 5 teams still winless in the Premier League. That is Burnley, as we mentioned, Leeds, Norwich, Newcastle and Southampton. And it's obviously them we're touching on now. They were the joint worst goal scorers going into this game. Joint second worst, I beg your pardon. Actually, no, I'm lying. Let me read my notes properly. The joint worst goal scorers going into the Prem going up against the second joint worst scorers. So it was never going to be a game flooded with goals. Southampton in trouble this season. We've gone back and forth on this a little bit this season, haven't we?
Yeah, very back and forth. At the start of the season, I said, yes, I think they'll be right down there, potentially relegated. And they've had results where they managed to draw 0-0 against City. They drew with United. I think defensively they're not too bad. I think they're just not able to score.
And this is what we said about Danny Ings going. That's a lot of goals to replace. If they, regardless of how good their defence is, if they can't put the ball in the net, a little bit like Norwich.
It's a lot of pressure on Che Adams they signed from the Championship last season and they've signed a Championship striker this season. So essentially they've got, it's a bit harsh to say Che Adams is a Championship striker, but 2 strikers that were playing the Championship last year.
Yeah, it's and it's not through lack of creation either. They created. They had 18 shots in this game, 6 of which were on target. Wolves only created 5 in this game, and they ended up winning. So, Ings is proving very difficult to replace. I think. As a general view in the bottom part of that table for Southampton, they've got Chelsea next. Followed by Leeds and then Burnley. Those latter 2 games, Leeds and Burnley, they're huge, aren't they? We've got 5 teams on 0 points. All of them want to get their season going and, not get into this rut of being 8 games in, still looking for a win. Leeds obviously lost to a late goal from West Ham at the weekend to prevent their season from getting going. Leeds have got Watford next. Watford are doing okay. They won a couple of games. And Burnley have got Norwich. So all of a sudden you've got a weekend or 2 coming up where somebody's got to get their season going. Somebody needs that win to kickstart things. And as stupid as it sounds, we talked about how bad Norwich are. if they beat Burnley next weekend, they're not going to jump out of the relegation zone because their goal difference is so poor. Yeah. But all of a sudden, they'll be like, well, we've got to win before these other 4 teams. Let's get going.
Yeah.
So, how do you think... it's very early to say, but of what you've seen so far, bearing in mind you've got Leeds down there, you've got Southampton down there, do you think Leeds, for example, are going to be in trouble?
I think Leeds are in big trouble. And they've had quite a few injuries as well. I mean, Bamford's out. I don't know when Bamford's back. Because
I think Rafinha's picked up a knock now, hasn't he?
Yeah, Rafinha was already injured. I think he was being sort of tested. And I think he's picked up another knock. And then I think Ayling picked up a knock.
Yeah.
We already know that they've got couple of centre-backs out, either suspended or injured. So
yeah, and they've got, I don't know, never know how you pronounce it, Strack, what his name is.
Yeah.
His ban was upheld, so he's got a 3-game ban coming up. So yeah, it is weird. As Wolves' up and down start to the season continues as well, lack of goals being an issue for them as well. Adama Traore on the bench for this one.
Yeah, I was sort of surprised, but at the same time not surprised, because he has been poor. But at the same time, like when I put him in my fantasy team, but I already knew that he couldn't score to save his life. So I don't know why I did it, but I just thought.
So by law of averages, he's got to accidentally score.
He's got to produce something, but I don't think he's had a single assist or goal. But he's created chances. There's just been no end product.
No, but I mean, Raul Jimenez getting his first goal at the weekend is huge.
You can see the relief on his face.
Yeah, I mean, he actually took his headband off last week. I think we said on the show through frustration. Unsurprisingly, had it back on again today or at the weekend. Sorry, but he's actually took his goal really, really well.
Goal was great.
Really good.
He sat down 2 players.
Yeah, he looked really good. He almost scored a fairly similar goal not long after that, where the Southampton defence just didn't deal with that long ball. But I wonder.
Passed it to Traore, to be honest.
Yeah, he looked like he was trying to find a gap and just couldn't find one. In the end, got caught between 2 minds. But I think for Jimenez getting that goal, it's brilliant for him given the journey he's been on and the injury that he's had for the recovery for the last year. But I just wonder if that goal does that suddenly spark the old Raul Jimenez back into life.
I think that could open the floodgates a bit. I think he just needed that because he must have been under so much pressure to just get that goal. Because that's the first time he scored in a year.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's been out. But...
And that pressure will be himself as well. That won't be from anybody else. That'll be on himself. So, yeah, and you can, as you said, you can see the relief and the happiness on his face after he did that. So, yeah, it's going to be the next few weeks. We might suddenly, we might see the bottom part of that table just taking form a little bit. I know we're very early in the season, but it is often the case that teams that are going to be struggling are in there or around there at this time of the season anyway. So, we shall see in a few weeks' time how that is. But unfortunately, we've got a bunch of games next week, and then we're on international break, isn't it? So, right, okay, let's start to round out the show. Let's get to Dan's stat. Dan the stat man.
So I've got something stuck in my throat. It's a good start. So Charlie Creswell became the first teenager to appear in a Premier League game for Leeds since which 2 players did back in 2004?
One is James Milner.
It is. And the other one is still in the Premier League as well.
Is it Ashley Young?
No.
He may not have been at Leeds actually originally.
Still in the Premier League.
Still in the Premier League.
It's got to be... is he an outfield player? Or is he a goalie?
He's a goalie.
He's a goalie. Still in the Premier League. Ben Foster?
Nope. He was at United, wasn't he?
Was he? Okay.
He was a teenager,
who is goalkeeper? He's old. So hang on. So this was 2004, right?
2004.
And he was a teenager.
He was 18 years old.
trying to do it by the maths. So that was 17 years ago and he was 18. So that means he's 35 now. Trying to go down the list of the goalkeepers. I don't know. I'll be here all night. Go on.
Scott Carson.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't have. I would have gone through like the first 11. I wouldn't have gone to the reserve goalies. Right. Okay. Well, it's 3 apiece in the closest quiz. All of a sudden, the threat of a forfeit has brought the best out of both of us. So let's get into it.
welcome back to another Football with Fran. I can't actually remember who should go for you.
I think it's me this week, isn't it?
Because you had David Beckham last, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, that home run at the end. Ridiculous. I feel like I need a pen. I think from next week I'm going to start using pen and paper.
Yeah.
Because it's getting that competitive now that I feel like I need to write them
To be
down.
fair, I nearly ruined the David Beckham one because I couldn't remember the PSG bit.
Yeah.
Whereas I said it in my head about 100 times.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I go to say it out loud.
I pretty much did that with, was it Craig Bellamy, I think it was last week? Even though I got one of them wrong, I'd actually forgotten one or two of the others I'd already thought in my head. So, anyway.
So, first player for you, Antonio Valencia.
Antonio Valencia.
8 teams.
Really? Oh, there's going to be some really random ones in there, though.
Oh, yeah. Some I can't pronounce. There's some niche players this week.
I've got to try and get the obvious ones done. I could be really safe with this because I'm not sure Dan is going to know too many of the random ones. Is there another Premier League team that I'm forgetting? I'm going to have to go 2. That's all I can think of.
Dan?
I can't remember if there's another Premier League team that I'm forgetting. And I know you'll know 2 because it'll be the same 2
I
I've
know
got.
2.
Yeah. This is a very hard one.
I mean, I know that he went back to Ecuador after United. I can't think of any Ecuadorian teams, to be honest with you. In my head, I've got like Chivas, but I know they're Mexican, so ain't that.
Are you going to let Chris go?
No, I'll go for it.
You got it, haven't you?
Because I know that he knows those 2.
Go on then.
So Wigan and United are the 2. Tigers?
No.
I mean, it's as good as ever. I probably wouldn't even have come up with as good a guess as that.
So El Nacional.
El Nacional.
Right.
Villarreal.
Okay.
Recreativo.
Yeah.
Wigan, Man U, LDU, Quito.
Yeah, that's the Ecuadorians.
Yeah, and then Quintaro.
I mean, you're saying these like we know who these teams are.
You do.
Yeah, we definitely don't
Anyway,
know
Chris, you can have that one.
Thanks very much.
I'll take that on the chin. There's no chance. If you'd have said like a Chelsea or something like that.
That's revenge for David Beckham last week, that is.
So, stepping back in time a bit here, Frank Sinclair.
Oh.
11 teams.
Can you name one?
Yeah, I could probably name 3.
Oh, okay.
Oh, girl.
I'll go with 3.
Yeah, 3. I think he's bluffing.
Up to you.
Though I can't remember who the player was, but he was reasonably well known, and Dan I don't even think knew one. So I'm not sure his knowledge of older players is that great. So I'm going to call his bluff and say go for it.
All right.
Here we go.
Chelsea,
Yeah.
West Brom,
Yeah.
Huddersfield.
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
So-
Leeds was another one I had.
No.
All right, good.
Chelsea, West Brom, Leicester, Burnley, Huddersfield, Lincoln, Wycombe Wanderers, Wrexham, Hendon, Colwyn Bay, Brackley Town.
Well done.
Well done. One apiece.
Double bluff me.
Yeah.
Slightly back in time as well. Jimmy Floyd Hasselbaink.
Jimmy Floyd.
He has played for
It's me,
10
isn't it?
teams.
10. Bloody hell.
I'm gonna go
He's
with.
going about this guy.
Again, there's gonna be a few random ones in there. I think. I'm gonna go with 3.
I swear we always have the same
3 is like your
guesses.
safe number.
I know.
But if you put it in the slot like that,
Yeah.
the other person
and
has
then
to
you're,
like.
forcing them or bluffing.
Yeah.
I'm fairly confident with 3. I guess I could probably guess 4. I'd go 4. Can you guess 5?
I'll have a go because I think I can do 4. So it depends if you've got the same 4. I'm going to say 5.
Oh,
Okay, I'll let you go for 5.
Okay. This is where I need my pen and paper again. What you saying earlier. Right. Chelsea,
Yeah.
Leeds,
Yeah.
Charlton,
Yeah.
Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
Now the one to guess. I'll say. I think he went down the league a little bit. What did he? I might go abroad. I'll say Feyenoord.
No.
I was going to say a Dutch team. I was thinking like Ajax.
So Telstar, AZ Alkmaar.
AZ Alkmaar, yeah, that's the Dutch team.
Neerlandia.
Probably another Dutch team.
Camp or something. Boa Vista, Leeds, Atletico Madrid, Chelsea, Middlesbrough, Charlton, Cardiff.
Oh, there was one more. Damn it.
That
Dan.
well.
2-1 to
Did you have 4?
Yeah, I had the Middlesbrough.
Okay.
Yeah.
It gets easier now.
I thought I was fairly confident. I thought I didn't want to guess the Dutch team, so I let you.
Oh, don't tell me it gets easier on match point on his serve.
Carl Walker, 6 teams.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh god.
I say it gets easier. I just mean I know these players.
Well, I definitely know 3. I just don't know if you know more, because if you go 4, I'm buggered because I don't know 5. So do I know 4?
Why? You're not very good at poker, are you? You're giving away all your secrets.
That's why I didn't come to last poker night. You'd just be giving money away.
40 quid on blackjack though.
You did, right.
It's easier bluffing behind a mobile phone screen, though, isn't it?
No, this is in the casino.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
When you are playing yourself, you don't need to bluff in that game.
Right, come on.
Right, I'll go 3.
Okay. Bastard. I cannot do 4, so I'm not gonna. I've made an ass of myself enough on this show, so I'm just gonna let you do your 3.
So City, Spurs.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he started at Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Those were the 3 I had.
Yeah.
Sheffield, Northampton Town, Spurs, went back to Sheffield, QPR, Aston Villa, City.
Aston Villa.
Yeah, Villa, okay.
Yeah.
Hang on. So he went
On
from.
loan.
So he was at Spurs
So while he was at Spurs, he went out on loan
to Villa.
Oh,
Okay. That must have been quite early.
And 11. 2010 to 11, he was at QPR on loan. 2009 to 10, he went back to Sheffield on loan.
Okay.
So is that 4-3?
That is 4-3, mate.
Lovely.
And the last
serve
player,
as well.
I know.
just, I thought this was quite topical. Ben White. He's played for 5 teams, but he's been out on loan.
2.
You can do more than 2, can't you?
I can't remember. Is there an obvious one I'm missing?
Well, my guess is 3 then.
So who's the obvious one I've
I'm
missed
very
then?
confident now.
Yeah.
Oh,
'cause I know
shit.
3.
Yeah, of
Now
course.
he knows 3.
Idiots. Oh, all right. Fuck it. 4.
Go on then, whoever.
Well,
You're not doing 5 then.
No.
Okay, right. So Arsenal, Brighton, Leeds.
Yeah.
This could be anyone. I'll go with Oxford United.
No.
Yeah. Could have sworn he had a spell there.
Newport County and Peterborough.
Okay. Well, I was in the right league area, wasn't I? I was in the right tier of
done, Dan.
English football.
4-1.
So 4-1 smashing.
Lovely.
So,
Fine margins this show these days.
4-3.
I'm pretty sure that we haven't had any one of them players before.
No,
I
I
don't
don't
have
think we
one
have.
of, so
No.
good work,
ones.
Fran.
It was only last week, just that one.
Did you
I
do
think
them?
that's the only repeat we've had so far.
Did you come up with the names?
This week, yeah.
Yeah, you did. Well done.
I've done all of them apart from the week where I wasn't here. And
Where'd
when
you
Will
get
did
Trevor
them.
Sinclair, Frank Sinclair from?
Who knows?
She has her sources.
Random name generator.
I'm not revealing my sources.
Excellent. Right. Okay. Well,
Google.
4-3 win. Heading into next week. So we will be back next Monday. There is no, for those of you that are following our LMA Manager series, there is going to be no show this week. We're not recording this week. But if you want to catch up with it, all 10 episodes are on YouTube at the moment. We've just
I'm
had...
retired after that.
We've just had the second Kickabout Derby on that, which didn't go too well for Dan. But yeah, we're having a lot of fun with it. It's great to go down memory lane and play the old games sometimes. So we will be back with episode 11 of that next week. And yeah, keep an eye out on social media for the patron information and get in touch if you've got anything you want to add. So thank you very much for listening, and we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.